right, everybody. I got another very special guest for you all. I want everyone to welcome to the show Randy Stone. How are we doing today, Randy?
Hey, Randy.
Good, thanks. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, and thanks for busting out all the original comic art pages behind you. Those are pretty sick.
Yeah, exactly.
So you are a collector yourself? You buy a lot, or?
Yeah, I used to buy a lot. I was trying to break in as an inker way back when, so I'd get pages just to kind of study the craft.
Oh, okay. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, because it's your first time here. Let's talk about your origin story of, how you got into comics, and now you're a writer now and not an inker, right? So
Yeah.
you can talk about that.
Yeah, so way back when, to my childhood, Marvel Universe trading cards, I broke into comics, or I got into comics based on those characters. Like, I fell in love with them just from the trading cards. And then hitting 7-Eleven and grabbing anything off the rack. Jim Lee X-Men was around that time, so that kind of fueled the fire. I wanted to be an artist for the longest time. And like I said, I enjoyed inking the most. It's less intimidating for one, but also just that laying down lines was just like meditative almost. Like, I just really enjoyed that process. So I was trying to get as an inker. Spent a couple years really focused on that. Made some progress. I had a lot of good feedback from some pros back in the day. And my first book, Champion, was just a project that I wrote just so I'd have a book to ink myself because I wasn't getting work at the time. I ended up getting picked up by a publisher, and suddenly I'm a writer. So that worked out okay. Didn't do well financially, but it was a comic book that I created that was in my hands, which was just the lifelong dream accomplished right there.
Mm-hmm. Awesome.
Didn't really make a career out of it at that point. Turned my attention to getting a real job and starting a family, and then years later came back primarily as a writer, doing some short stories, and then just building on that because I could never escape it. Like, the ideas were still coming, and even though I was not actively involved in comics for like a decade, I could never leave. And here I am back self-publishing.
Yeah, we always suck you back in. Just right back.
You got to come back. You can never leave. And you've come back, and you have a few titles, at least through your website. And I know there's a few we want to talk about today. So which one? I mean, between like Bullet and Crime Pays and everything, which would be your earliest out of those?
So Bullet's interesting because back when I wrote Champion, which is the book I was saying, I also had Bullet in the works. I was pitching that around, and it just never got picked up. The artist Nate Stockman, he got work from Marvel and Image, and he was doing really well after that. But just this pitch never got picked up, and kind of sat in the drawer for a while. I reapproached that, knowing that it was a good story, it was a good concept, but maybe my execution wasn't so great on the script. I met up with Jordan Alseca and had him tear it down and revise it. So that's the oldest of my current books as far as concept. It just took a dozen years to come back to. Death in Comics, which is kind of an anthology of short stories all based on death in different ways. That was the first one that I put out in my more recent attempt at comics. And that was a bunch of short stories that I wrote as I was getting back into it, because it was easy just to do like a 5 or 6 page thing or even a 2-pager.
Yep.
And then I noticed that I had kind of this common theme through many of them. I did a couple more just to kind of round out that issue of death-related stories. And so that was my first attempt at self-publishing.
Oh, okay. I think it's ironic to have stories about death as you're trying to like rebirth yourself into comics.
Yeah, exactly.
It's an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, life through death.
Yeah. So let's talk about Bullet and what you've been doing with that story.
So the one shot that we put out, it was a Kickstarter that was funded last year. It's a self-contained one-shot, double-sized issue. It was all that needed to be done, but I love the character and the concepts behind it that I actually worked with Jordan to create a new ongoing series. It's set in the current day and kind of delves into his lineage a little bit. I don't want to get into too many spoilers, but it's exciting to have an ongoing series. We've got 4 issues mostly finished, so kind of coming back to it and exploring different aspects of the character has been a lot of fun, and then a whole bunch of new things. So I'm hoping to put that out this fall coming up. So we'll be launching that. The one shot is available through my website. We're really building on that series.
And what is the character like? Explain the character to our listeners.
Yeah, so it's a super speedster. It's this guy, Dale D'Souza. He's an old man looking back on his time as he gained powers and became a superhero back in the 60s. So it has a Silver Age feel, both in kind of the approach to the story as well as actually being set in the 60s. And he becomes a super speedster that fights crime and falls in love.
And yeah, it definitely is like a Silver Age style story, which is kind of like bittersweet as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can tell you're a fan of those books.
Well, exactly. I mean, I've loved superheroes for 30 years. Like,
yeah, right.
Especially after doing things like death and crime and horror and stuff like that. I've got 2 young boys myself, so I couldn't really share a lot of that stuff with them. So I want to do something lighthearted again, just like showing my passion for superheroes. Like Swan, that's another one. The Sensational Swan was a bunch of short stories based on that Batman analog kind of character. It's kid safe, but it's not aimed at kids for sure. It's got some elements that are more mature. Excuse me. But Bullet is like totally just a Saturday morning cartoon, kind of like, you know, a comic you want to roll up and stick in the back of your pocket kind of thing. Share with your friends and run around pretending to be him. Like, that's kind of what I envision, and just really want kids to feel love for comics the same way I did with something like Bullet. And I think a child and an adult can enjoy it just as easily.
Yeah. And I just to talk about the art really quick. The art by Kath Lobo is amazing.
Yeah, she's incredible.
So how did you get the connection with her?
I came across her on Twitter. I think most of my collaborators I just find on Twitter. You know, you fall in love with some posts that they did, and I approached her, and she was willing and able to do Bullet back in the day. And she wasn't able to continue on with the ongoing series. I mean, that's kind of the thing that happens when you've got a really great artist. They're in demand, and they get busy with other books. So, unfortunately, I couldn't have her back. It was just a bad timing, I suppose. So we've got a couple new artists currently on the ongoing title.
Oh, okay.
So it's a bit of a different approach, but I think with the time shift, it actually worked out pretty well. It shouldn't be jarring, I don't think, because the one shot was so self-contained.
Okay. Yeah.
It'll be Laura Kane and Nico Carrizo, so the artists coming up. So
great. Yeah, looking forward to that.
So you talked to us like before the recording about how you had different plans of how you wanted to get it out, the ongoing out into the public, and one of them was to go through Diamond. And we don't have to get too much into why it's not in Diamond, but I would love to hear more about the process of working with Diamond Lunar, and what do they require out of you to even pitch? Like, how does that process work?
Yeah, Lunar was, they didn't have anything posted on their website as far as what the submission process was. Diamond had a bunch of forms that you have to fill out, and kind of like your approach to marketing, and kind of like a one sheet on each of the issues that you're submitting there. So there was a little bit more formalized process with them. So I'm still waiting to hear back from Lunar. Fingers crossed on that. I don't have any experience with them otherwise, so it's a mystery to me. If we get the green light, then I'll have all those questions answered, I hope. I've funded a lot of Kickstarter projects. I've done that several times, so I'm more familiar with the crowdfunding aspect. This is new to me. It would be another lifelong dream checked off if I could have an ongoing superhero book in a comic store. Like, that's ridiculously cool. I hope I can get to that point with this, and we'll see.
Yeah, we hope so too. And I know a few people that are big Speedster fans too, so they for sure would be picking your book up when it came out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Can we talk about that for a second? So you're talking about doing an ongoing with Bullet now. What kind of things are we going to be exploring? Like, is he going to have a rogues gallery kind of thing? Like, are we going to see more villains showing up like every day?
Yeah, there's definitely there's so many in the works. Return to some of the previous villains, and then others that are more new versions, because again, it's generations later from the 60s to now. So you'll see kind of a revised version on an old concept. Some of them do actually come back, that they're actually just old men. So.
Yeah, okay. Like a walker or something.
Exactly.
Awesome.
And with like the style you're going with, you said like the Saturday morning cartoon or the classic comic style. Like, are you doing one-shot stories inside the ongoing, or do you plan on like these like what modern comics do with these 4 or 5 issue arcs?
Yeah. So there will be threads, obviously, that run through. It's not a sitcom that just restarts at the end of every episode. So the characters will build and grow along with issue to issue. But as far as telling a story, each issue should be a complete story on its own. That's how I feel. Maybe with the dream of having it out there, somebody can walk into a store and pick up number 3, and we've got a little blurb on the credits page that says previously on, sort of thing, right? So you're not going to be completely lost, but you'll be able to enjoy that and hopefully run with it. Like, yeah, I'm going to grab an issue number 4 because 3 was great. Whether you can find 1 or 2, digitally, okay, that's fine, that's available, but you shouldn't have to count on knowing the previous 40% of a trade paperback. I really want people to be able to step in and just enjoy the story for what it is. And of course, just growing from issue to issue, there will be a history that kind of develops that we build on every issue there. I just don't want you to have to rely on comic book continuity. Like, yeah, I'll never get into it because I haven't read the last 10 years of stuff. Like, it should just be accessible to new readers. Every issue is somebody's first. That's the Stan Lee concept, right?
Right.
So we are aiming for that for sure.
Yeah.
But with that said, there will be a nice collection that has common threads. I've got a volume 2 and a volume 3 kind of in mind, like some sort of common themes, but really self-contained. Maybe a to be continued where you have a 2-parter, just like the kind of stuff that I read growing up. That's kind of what I'm aiming for.
Okay, great.
And you said that you have like 4 issues kind of ready for the most part. How fast are you kind of pumping out issues? Is it something that when it does like, let's say you get into Lunar and you're able to get into shops, is it going to be something monthly, or is kind of things running where you're going to probably do 4 issues or 5 issues, maybe take a month or 2 off, or like how's the time frame for the book look?
I'm thinking probably as close to monthly as possible with that break, and then a trade paperback, and then come back with the issue 5, 6, 7 kind of thing, like moving on from there. Again, having so much lead time right now, if we go full steam ahead, then by the time we catch up, I mean, that's going to be the second trade worth of stories done already, right? It was kind of a slow pace with the first issue. That was one of the reasons that Laura couldn't continue on with anything beyond the first issue of Bullet Adventures. She was just struggling a little bit, realizing how much effort goes into an ongoing series and a full issue like that. So that's when I brought Nico on. Again, between issue 1 and 2, there's a reason why it's acceptable that there's a big shift in the art style as well. I don't want to give too much away because there are reasons for that. But yeah, Nico was on a regular schedule there. Probably within 6 weeks, he'd have a new issue done. Fran, who's doing the colors, she's quick. Lucas, who does the letters. So I think once we get rolling, the schedule will be easy to maintain, and then take that month off every 5 or 6 issues. So it should be relatively ongoing, regular release schedule.
Okay, great. And I know you have your own website up and running too, where all your titles are available and everything like that. How has that been going for you, as opposed to some other outlet for books?
So I've sold through Comixology as well. There's a couple things on there that, you get that initial jolt of sales on the first day or within the first week, and then it disappears completely. Mm-hmm. I mean, the occasional stuff, 6 months later, you get a little invoice or a statement for $2 that you made a sale. Like, it's not an income really from there.
Right.
My website doesn't have the traffic, obviously. People aren't browsing my store. So when I push things out on Twitter, that's usually my main thing, or on Facebook, I get the odd sale here and there. So it's not really the moneymaker either. The initial release through Kickstarter previously, or what I'd be seeing here if I get into the retail stores, I'd be counting on that to be the primary source of income.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you still currently on Comixology? Or did you get purged with the Great Purge?
You know what? I assume that it's gone. I didn't resubmit it or anything like that. I think I had to have done that. I didn't even bother.
Comixology.
I may do that just kind of like once every month or two, put a new book on there, and then I'll get that little jolt again. But
yeah,
I haven't really looked into it.
Yeah, they didn't really help anybody out when they did that.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, great, Randy. And we're gonna promote the hell out of it when it does find its home and where it's getting distributed, whether it's Kickstarter or through Diamond or something like that. But if our listeners and our viewers want to follow you and all the stuff you're doing, where's the best place to send them?
Yeah, so all social media I've got at Altruist Comics. I also have my very personal Twitter, which is Randy Stone COTW. But yeah, Facebook. I created a TikTok account the other day.
There you go.
So I know that's the future.
Yeah, again with the times. Sorry.
When it's an old guy like me on there, then it probably means it's in decline and will be gone in a couple of weeks. But
there you go.
I figure that's where most of the traffic is, and I'll try to post some stuff on there. But really, it's not like I'm thrilled to put my face out there on the internet. Little previews and stuff should be fun.
Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
I keep telling Mike that he's got to start the TikTok because I'm sure as hell not going to do it.
I have one to browse and stuff, and I look for there's two things I look at on TikTok. It's barbecue and comics, and I don't see enough comic books and artists on there. So I would love to see more development stuff, comic book wise, on TikTok. But it's mostly just
a different personality. We're often introverted, sitting in a studio doing your work. We grew up just reading alone, right?
Right, exactly.
And to put yourself out there is just an awkward situation. Credit to you guys to be out there. It's certainly out of my comfort zone that I'm really pushing myself to get out here and trying to talk about my work. But it means actually having to talk. I'm like, oh. So.
If there's not enough comic artists out there doing, I'm not on TikTok, so I don't know. I'm the old man of the group. But here's the $1 million idea, comic artists: time lapse of you doing pages.
Yeah,
people will watch the crap out of it.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm looking for, and I haven't seen much of that. So maybe
it's always fun seeing it on Twitter.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, and maybe I'm just not TikToking right. I don't know. I probably might not be.
Get up your TikTok game.
Yeah, I guess so.
So everybody out there, I will have the link to Randy's website straight to the store, so you can check out all the books, especially Bullet. And make sure you go and follow him on social media. So when we do find out how Bullet Adventures is going to be published, whether it's like Mike said, whether it's through Kickstarter, Lunar, or whoever, you're the first to know. And check those things out. And Randy, thanks so much for being on, man. We appreciate your time. And we'll talk to you again soon, man.
Yeah, awesome.